Hey there, Nikki here from Design Delights. Thanks for tuning in to watch me make some decorations for the monster cake. Sorry about the aspect ratio, I'm still getting good at the video YouTube thing, so turn those phones and chime in. First, let's build the base of the mouth of the cake. So this part is not going to be seen, so I don't mind what color I'm using. I had some leftover gray, but one thing I do care about is how strong it is. So I'm using a Saraceno pasta model and making the base a little bit thicker, which you see me doing here, and then shaping the top to my liking. I drew a line in black edible marker on my cake dummy, as you can see, and that just shows me how to line everything up, because that's where I'm going to cut my 6-inch cake, and I'm going to cut an angle to create that open mouth effect, and then I'll cover it with black fondant once it's placed on the cake on the inside of the mouth. But there you have it. That's what it'll look like on my 6-inch cake, and then I can cover it in buttercream to my liking. Use those toothpicks on the side to attach it to your cake dummy and lay it to the side to dry. So now, again, I'm using Saraceno pasta model here. I'm mixing up some light pink to make a tongue, thicker at the base and thinner towards the end of the tongue, and then I decided to make a little point. As you can see in the bottom corner there, right there, I was using a texture mat to add a little texture to the tongue, and I just used a leather texture mat. It worked fine. And then I used my Dresden tool to create the line down the tongue to kind of make it a smooth line on the side, not so sharp. And then I used a boba straw to put underneath the tongue and a little tiny styrofoam ball because I want it to dry a certain way. And I'm just going to lay it to the side and let those things dry. Moving on to the next thing. For this, I'm using just regular old fondant. I just some satin ice probably, because I use both. Everything has a purpose. So here I have some tan and some white, and I'm making some fingers. I'm using a fondant mold. Use them if you got them. They save time. And I'm taking some fondant tools and just drawing in the knuckles a little bit better and cleaning up the imperfections from the silicone mold. But I always use that sharp edge tool, fondant tool, to kind of scrape off the fondant mold as I'm using it. And then I use a regular straw to kind of put under where the knuckles are to bend them. All right, I lay those to the side to dry because we're going to dry paint them later. So now the big guy, the knife. And the knife stands up pretty tall. We don't need to make a full knife, just a half knife to make it look like it's stabbing into the cake. A real knife is obviously thin on one edge where it cuts. So as you see here, I'm kind of flattening and then creating that rigid line where you see the sharper part of the knife. So that's the knife that you see me use right there. Again, strong fondant. Let's use Saraceno right here, strong sugar paste. So using a real knife, I use it as a stencil to create my my handle, and it's very thick. So now I'm going to add the two pieces together with a piece of, I think, 22 gauge floral wire, which is moderately strong. I'm going to use some toothpicks too. But because the knife is kind of thinner, I use floral wire over barbecue skewer. But you can use a barbecue skewer if you think that's going to make it a little bit more stable. Use some edible glue to attach these two pieces together, and just be gentle with it as you're moving it around, because if it's still wet, you don't want to bend it and misshape it. So I'm going to create some more strength and cover up that line a little bit better. So I create some, as you can see here, I'm just trying to figure out how to make the two pieces nicely connect together. So I do decide to give the back of the knife a little bit of extra sugar paste to make it stronger, but still trying to keep that edge sharp looking. And then I create a little black strip and just kind of make it look like it's part of the knife, making that edge nice and strong and that little line in the knife to show where the sharper part is. Adding a couple toothpicks to help me hold it on the cake, and then laying it off to the side to dry. We're going to paint it later. Now I wasn't really sure if I was going to use these or not, but my customer basically just said she wanted a gory horror cake. She liked horror films, but didn't necessarily need the horror film aspect in the cake. But I found this mold and I just decided to play with it. And I was like, well, if I don't use them, then that's also fine. I can let my kid eat them or something, because for some reason he likes to eat fondant. So there's that. And so this is just a little mold making Michael Myers, Jason, and Ghostface. And the Michael Myers were a little tricky. He kept getting his face deformed, and I had to keep remaking him. But I figured they could be like, you know, just little accents on the vintage style cake. And if I decide not to use them, whatever, they're there. I always say make more than you need, and they're there if you need them, right? So now I'm going to make the teeth. So I have the tongue in place, and I'm using this as a guide to help me make the teeth. So I'm rolling out some fondant, making it sharp. And then I'm going to, I want the teeth to be even. So as you can see, I'm working on the top of the mouth right here, and I'm trying to make symmetrical teeth. So that way, when I put these teeth on the cake, they match, right? And they don't have to be super strong because they're light. And you know what? My buttercream ends up holding them greatly, and they don't fall at all. I didn't even use a floral wire or anything. Just stick them in the wet buttercream and they're going to be great. But I end up creating, you know, a variety of teeth. And I looked at several different pictures and just got ideas of like monsters. So having those long teeth in the front and the shorter teeth as you go out to the side. But I think making them symmetrical, giving room for the tongue to kind of sit and breathe, like I think that's key. And then I decided to do those little teeny tiny teeth on the top. So that's fun. So now I'm going to paint everything. So I'm going to move everything to the side probably. But here I'm just adding a little bit of pink to that leather texture on the tongue. Not too much. It didn't need a lot. And I just kind of lay that to the side. Now the fingers, we're adding some dark brown on the knuckles and on the bases of the nail bed, okay? And this made these really look good, okay? I got a lot of compliments on the fingers. So, you know, dry dusting with color is gonna really make your decorations better than the average person, okay? The knife, luster dust. So everything so far we've used petal dust without the shine. So the knife, we use luster, silver, to make it shine. Now I'm going to make the teeth look a little old and dingy, so I'm using a sepia petal dust just on the part of the tooth that should hit the gum line. And then I kind of just blend it into the white as best as I can, but just kind of giving it that yucky old tooth rotted look, right? So and then I put them on my cake dummy in a way that I'll remember where they go. So here I'm using an edible black marker, and I'll tell you right now that these things were too small, and I very quickly decided that that was not how I wanted to go about it. So a couple things. You can mix up your own paint from some petal dust if you want with alcohol, but honestly, I'm not even gonna lie, I just used food coloring right out of the cap. So I did, and I probably should have saturated it, but you know what? I didn't really care. So I used a small food safe paintbrush with some black food coloring. You could also just use like I like Poppy paint a lot. It's a brand of paint that works really good with chocolate and fondant, and it dries matte, which I like. They have a product that you can put on top of it to make it shiny. But Poppy paint, it's kind of pricey, but definitely the best edible paint that I've found, and I use it sparingly. But yeah, so that's it on this cake. You know, some great decorations, and hopefully you got enough information. Shoot me a comment if you have any questions, and happy Halloween.